Well, hello everyone. Today we're working on the front pedestal to this John Deere B. Got it all apart a few days ago. Now that I've kind of learned its in and outs, I thought I'd show you now that it's ready to go back together. So the actual shaft is over here. It goes all the way up through that pedestal. That's why if you need to remove this, you can either lift the tractor really high and pull it out from the bottom, or you can take the pedestal off, which is what I did just because I was taking everything else apart anyway. Another option excuse me, another option that I've heard that I figure is probably a pretty good idea. There's other people that you know, this bolts on to the frame rails via these 4 studs, is taking 3 of them off after you've gotten all your steering shaft and all that out, and then just rotating it sideways. I think that's a pretty good idea, pretty safe idea. So if I wasn't going down to this level, that would probably be what I would try. But anyway, after I got it out, this thing was covered in grease. I've cleaned up the actual shaft, as you can see. For some reason, I'll turn my light on here, I had some scoring going on. Not really sure why or what that's from. Then in the bottom, I clean this up. Sorry about that. See what you can up in there. So this is a bushing that everything rotates in. Something to note, so how this bottom works is you've got this, what they call pivot plate and washer. Now you can see on this pivot plate it's got a couple of grooves, and those grooves there sit in this recess here. That way this plate doesn't turn with respect to this. And then up here you've got this bushing, and it's got these little, they call them tongues in the manual, sticking out, so that this washer, let's see if I can get it in there one-handed, sits around those tongues, so this washer doesn't turn. And then you fill this with grease, and that's where you get your rotation in between those 2 pieces. Now, something to note, when I took this apart, these tongues were pressed even with that hole. I don't know how long that was like that, but anyway, so this plate was technically free to turn. I don't know if that's really a big deal or not, because I mean, this is a nice smooth surface. Now maybe it's not supposed to be, and it was like that from where, but yeah, the main rotation is meant to be between these 2 pieces. This was full of grease way up in there in the back. You can't really see it. Once you get through that bushing, then it opens up real wide with this pedestal. How I got that grease out, you can either reach down back here, but I was actually using a socket on an extension that was real wide, and I'd get along the side and then pull it out and just kind of keep scooping it out. I mean, I pulled a lot of grease out. So yeah, once I get this back together, then I'll start telling you more about the eccentric bushing and the sector gear up top. We'll go from there. Alright, so you can see we got the pedestal mounted on the front, got that shaft up through there, made sure those tongues were lined up. When we put it back on, just note the center line of your wheels are behind the center line of your steering shaft. I started to put this together and I realized I was doing a disservice to you by doing that, but you can see this is what they call the centric bushing in here. This hole through here is actually off-center from basically this outer diameter here in the gear. And down in there, they fell down in there at this point, but there are a couple of shims, and there's some packing that goes down in there. Sometimes people have questions about the wobble of the steering, and you can actually adjust this in terms of you're adjusting it based on the eccentricity of that hole, and you can sometimes get some of the play out of your front end or your steering. So yeah, I'm going to continue driving this down. Something else to point out, so this is the stop pin here for your steering sector, and I actually need to get that bolt out down there because that's what holds this piece down, so I'll do that in a second. So yep. Alright, I just wanted to show you guys how that sits down in there. You can see where that screw sits in between these sort of gear teeth, and if you want to adjust it, you take that bolt out and rotate it until the next notch. So, alright folks, last but not least, we've got the steering sector in there. We've got that positioned so with essentially the wheels straight ahead, or your axles there perpendicular with the front of the tractor. The gap between the teeth is centered with the stop pin. So essentially the center of your gear teeth is going straight to the right of the tractor. And you've got a washer on top and this nut. Now the manual says you want to tighten this nut until there's 32 thousandths of play in that spindle. So what I've done, you can see I have dial indicator on there. I don't have it touching right now, but I did earlier. And then what I did was I supported the tractor here, and then using a jack, I lifted the spindle and then saw on the dial indicator that I had, I can't remember how much it was exactly now, but it was around that. So I know I'm lined up with a hole right now in order to get my cotter pin through. If I were to rotate to another one, it was just getting way too tight, and I know I wouldn't have that 32 thousandths of clearance. So I know I'm good where I'm at. You can also, if it's not right, like if you're out and you're not lined up with your hole, you can add some shims in here, the manual says. So so that gets the steering sector and spindle and all that on. At this point, you'd be ready to put in your steering shaft and all that. I'm going to put that in a separate video just for kind of time's sake, getting these videos together and out there for those of you that are watching, because I do have a couple videos basically put together already, different parts, and I want to get to you guys the first startup. So hopefully you guys will see that soon. If you got any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'd love to get some feedback. We'll keep moving forward here. Hopefully get this baby rolling soon. So talk to you guys later.